celebrate on Christmas Eve.
All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors for Wednesday, December 19th, 2018 of the Joshua Basin Water District. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Callie, you want to lead it?
Would you like to follow me on the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move to item number 3, administer the oath of office.
Madam President, Director Unger has already been sworn in, so she doesn't need to be sworn in tonight, but Director Reynolds needs to be sworn in, and so here we go. Stand up and raise your right hand, and I state your name.
I, Mike Reynolds,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
and that I will well and faithfully
I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties that I am about to enter.
Thank you. There we go. And for both directors, Mr. Reynolds and Ms. Rebecca Unger, this is a certificate of election from the County of San Bernardino from the Registrar of Voters.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You did?
We're going to do a little switch of the agenda. We're going to go, item number 5 will move up. So the next thing, Mr. Sauer, is determination of quorum.
Madam President, all 5 directors are here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We will move to the next item, which is election of officers. And I am going to propose that we have Mr. Johnson as president and Rebecca Unger as vice president. Any other people want to make any nominations? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I second.
We'll take a roll call just to make it legal. We'll start at this end. Mike?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
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 Okay, congratulations, we have a new president and vice president. You can have my seat, I'm out of here.
No.
Microphones, please. Bob, if you put the mic on.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move the agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 7, public comment. Members of the public may address the board at this time with regard to matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not listed on the agenda. State law prohibits the board of directors from discussing or taking action on items not included on the agenda. Members of the public will have the opportunity for public comment on any item listed on the agenda. When it is addressed on the agenda, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Mr. Marquez.
El Marquez, Sunfair Community of Joshua Tree. I'd like to welcome the new member of the Board of Directors, and he's been a member of the board prior. We hadn't seen him in a long time, but that's here and there. So I hope he's up to date about what's going on with the water district in the last couple of years. My condolences to myself and other people that were on the candidates for the water district that didn't make it. But I will say that I will continue to make my comments representing 204 people that voted for me. So whenever I make comments, it's not just for myself, it's for the people that voted for me in the election. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to item 8, the consent calendar. And do I need to read this? All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted in a single motion without discussion. Any board member or member of the public may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar and acted on separately. We have October 26th special board meeting, November 26th special board meeting, December 4th special board meeting, December 5th regular meeting of the board of directors, October, November check registry, and draft job descriptions reviewed by the finance committee and the water resource operations committee, December 12th. Do I have a motion to accept these?
I move consent calendar.
Sure.
I will second that, thank you.
And I would add also the October 27th special meeting. I don't know if I didn't hear you read that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. With that, do I entertain a vote then? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved, so carried. Joining the Community Water Services Alliance, item 12 or 9.
All right, members of the board, this is an informational packet that you have in the board. We are not asking for a decision tonight. I just wanted you to have time to review the packet. Basically, you've read the packet, so you know what it's about, but I'm going to do something a little unusual. Ray Kolish, the general manager of 29 Palms Water District, is briefing his board tonight on the same thing, and he has graciously given me a copy of his report to his board. And Ray is one of the creators of this idea. You remember that Ray and Adon came maybe 9 months ago and spoke about the need for a concerted effort to influence the legislature. So his background report is they've been working to form an alliance of community water systems to give voice to elected officials who represent disadvantaged communities, as is the case of 29 Palms and Joshua Basin. It's particularly important given that proposals to tax water at the meter have already surfaced for reconsideration by the legislature in 2019. We're also expecting the State Water Board to release draft economic feasibility guidelines that will impact the standard for chromium-6 and other constituents. And what this group is going to work on is when these economic feasibility guidelines are released, instead of the water districts that have chromium-6 contaminant that exceed the new level being out of compliance right away, that there's enough time for these water districts to come into compliance. On November 30th, 29 Palms helped to organize and lead a gathering of 22 general managers and board members representing 14 water agencies stretching from Watsonville to the High Desert and the Inland Empire to jumpstart the Community Water System Alliance. The California Association of Water Mutual Companies is willing to act as a fiscal sponsor. This avoids having to start a new water association. Among several needs, the California Mutual Water Companies and the Community Water System Alliance will use the funds to develop briefing materials reflecting the needs of disadvantaged communities, such as 29 Palms and Joshua Basin, that are successfully fending for ourselves. The funds will also be used to help poorer water districts send their representatives to public hearings in Sacramento and around the state. The original draft budget estimated costs at $60,000 for 1 year, which those assembled on November 30th thought was too modest given the level of interest and need to have participation in the hearings and meetings ahead, especially in Sacramento. The group has so far agreed that residents of well-functioning, disadvantaged communities should not be taxed to benefit chronically failing water systems in other parts of the state. We've agreed to work to find alternative funding sources that will also be available to agencies such as 29 Palms and Joshua Basin Water District. The group has also agreed to look at other forms of mutual aid between well-functioning water systems and those that may be at the brink of failing. His recommendation to his board is that agencies that sponsor the initiative at $10,000 a year or more will be part of the policy council that will guide the new alliance. 29 Palms has been urging others to support the effort, and it is his recommendation to the 29 Palms Board of Directors that they agree to engage at the $10,000 level per year. Upon approval of the board, the alliance will draft a memorandum of understanding to be presented to the board for consideration. So Susan and I attended the first meeting, Susan and I attended the second meeting conference call, and I think both of us were impressed with what Adon and his associates have lined out on how they're going to govern this alliance, how they're already contacting legislature members. And what I found particularly interesting is there are large water districts, such as Eastern Municipal, that are putting up $20,000 and $30,000 in support of the smaller, well-functioning, disadvantaged community water districts, so that there's a concerted effort to reach the legislature and have them consider our concerns rather than us not having a voice. So it's our recommendation that the board, in January, we can bring this back and you can approve it, and hopefully by January 16th, which I think will be our next board meeting, the draft memorandum of understanding will have been further edited, and I'll be able to present an MOU that's in its, close to its final form for your consideration. That's the end of the report.
So do I have any action on this, or is it just information only, or do I need to ask the board for their recommendation?
Just board comments and tell me to bring it back in January.
Mike, do you have anything?
I think it's exciting. There's the old saying, there's strength in numbers. Whenever you gather small agencies together, suddenly that voice will be heard. I can see lots of potential wonderful things happening from this. Good job.
I would echo Mike's comments. You mentioned governance, and that was a question that I had when I read through this. You also mentioned a policy council that we can you elaborate a little bit more on what they said about the governance of this group?
So the charter members, 10,000 or more, will be the governing board.
Okay.
Every member of the alliance will have a vote, and everything that they create and present to the public and to the legislature, if you're on board, the water district's name will be on it. If the water district's board doesn't agree with what it says, we contact them and say, don't put our name on this one.
Great, thank you.
I don't have anything.
Yeah, I was at Chad May's Christmas party and had both Ray and Jennifer Poland corral me and talk about how wonderful this was. And I just wanted to say I'm absolutely in support. I agree with Mike, there is a lot of power in numbers.
Rebecca?
Yeah, High Desert Water isn't on this?
Well, they weren't listed as attending the meetings, but now that I hear that Jennifer Poland was in concurrence with Ray, I'm assuming that High Desert is on board. They're certainly not a small water district, but they are, I think they're a DAC, so they're a disadvantaged community. And Marina from Bighorn High Desert, Desert View, was on the second call as well, and I'm assuming that she's taking the same proposal to her board, but I do not know that for a fact.
Yeah, that's good if us 4 independent water districts, we all have, kind of different issues, But there's some, the big stuff, that we all get caught in that net. And, yeah, certainly, safety in numbers is important. And how are the people from Santa Margarita Water District?
How are they?
Yeah, they're the ones that, I don't think they're buying that water from Cadiz now, but they were in that deal with Cadiz.
I don't know.
I just wonder how,
They sounded fine on the phone.
if something like that comes up, I mean, there's just an interesting issue, just to. So you want us to have a look at this, think about it, come back to the next meeting,
Yeah,
get the MOU?
I put it on the agenda as information, so you can't take an action on it tonight. But
Because there is a,
we'll bring it back to the next board meeting for
Okay.
approval.
there's an
with an
MOU in
updated
here,
MOU.
will it change any?
It's not going to change very much, but there were some concerns, and it's a work in progress.
Thank you
Is there
very
any
much.
public comment at this point? Yes, sir. State your name and where you're from.
Tom Flowen, Joshua Tree, North, Ratepayer. I was just kind of curious about if there was any overlap between this lobbying organization and any that were in. Aqua occurs to me, but I don't know that we pay them any money. I can't remember that. Also, too, the two folks that came here several months ago and gave a presentation, which included a lot about pending legislation and such. I can recall that it was quite scary. And another thing would be that if we could exercise some influence over our legislators before they do something like the chromium-6 thing, which caused us a whole lot of effort, and then ended up being stopped, at least temporarily. If we can influence them early and prevent some of those kind of things from happening in the first place, it'd be a great deal. Thank you.
One more thing, you mentioned Ray's idea, and say that passes, and a $10,000 contribution per year would put us on the council. Would you be considering recommending we pay $10,000 a year versus $5,000 a year? That's currently listed in there.
Whichever way the board would like to go. I'm very certain with Ray as a member of the charter members that all four of the water districts would be well represented. He's gone out of his way to communicate with this district ever since I've been here, and I don't see that changing at all. And if the board wanted to do $10,000 a year, then we'd have a seat at the table, but I don't see it as critical.
Thank you.
I think there's some high flyers that are
Got it.
actively ready to go. We've already met with a couple of different legislators.
All right, so we'll look for that on January 16th, hopefully.
Yeah, 16.
I was, Kurt, you kind of threw away a line there, you've met with a couple legislatures. Want to share anything?
The group, the formation core group people have met with legislators. I don't have specific details. I think it's in your briefing packet, what Don wrote up in, I guess it's not in your briefing packet, and I don't recall the legislators that they've met with, but the reaction from the legislators was, how could we have missed this and not considered the disadvantaged communities throughout the state that are well-functioning, rather than trying to tax all of the water districts to help the ones that are disadvantaged and not well-functioning because they don't have the revenues. So we were told that their eyes were opened about, if you put a water tax on every meter, that's $4,700 roughly a month that goes out of this district. and that would be $4,700. It'd be initially only $12 a year for ratepayers, but over 5 years, it'll be $60 a year for ratepayers, and that has a tendency to impact our abilities to have rate increases when we get around to that some 3 years from now.
Thank you, that was, because I felt like Tom
And-
Flo, and I remember when they were here, and they were kind of scary. Their report was a little scary, so
And-
thank you.
And two of Ray's board members have already been up to Sacramento in the last month, and that's one of the things that they'll be asking for, is that general manager or board members are able to either attend hearings or meetings with legislators in Sacramento, and/or host tours of legislators in our districts.
Got a nice tour already, ready to go.
All right, thank you. Moving on to number 10, Administrative Code Review, Revise, and Update. Who might that be?
Oh, that's me. Yeah, Susan has the next one. Some couple of months ago, we mentioned the need to revise the administrative code, as well as the need to revise the rules and regulations. And so we decided, and the board concurred, to start with the administrative code, and we were asked to bring the administrative code revisions back to the board after the elections. It's after the elections. So we're bringing the administrative code to you. You have an administrative code in your packet. Beverly is working on making sure that we've got every single resolution and for the past 53 years or whatever. And what we're looking for is for the board to tell us, how do you want to revisit, revise, and improve the administrative code? You want to do it with an ad hoc committee? You want to do it with like a weekend workshop? I'm kind of partial, hoping that you'll do a weekend workshop rather than us having significant numbers of ad hoc committee member meetings and then reporting back to the full board. I think it'd be a lot quicker to just do a weekend workshop. Or an evening workshop during the week. Or a workshop from 11 to 1 during regular working hours.
Or an ad hoc workshop.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this to us. I was one of the ones that was sort of thinking this would be paramount, especially with some of the newer board members, some of us older ones that haven't gone back quite as far as Mickey, as far as we were supposed to have gone. I just think it would be a good introductory process if we could, to maybe look at this, and I don't know that we've ever done this, have we?
No, not that I know of.
And I think bits and pieces, for me, I would lose a lot in the translation between here and the week or two passing, so maybe a workshop would work for me. Mike?
I'm not opposed to either way, actually. I like the idea of visiting this, going over it. The advantage of a weekend workshop would be to cover a lot of items quickly, and hopefully doesn't get lost in translation, as you said. Time, how many hours or days do we think it would take to cover this? Would be a question I would have. And then just start planning it. I'm good either way, after hours, maybe a combination of the two. I'm not overly particular.
Okay.
Weekend workshop.
I agree, weekend workshop.
I agree too, and it's not that huge. I mean, there's some icky-wicky-picky stuff in there, but I think we could do it maybe in a day, a weekend day. And if we need an ad hoc committee to say, you know what, this needs to be worked on a little bit, a couple people say, okay, we'll get together and do it and bring it back. But definitely, I think we all need to sit down and woodshed it together.
Are we gonna need Gil there to decipher some of this?
No.
Hey,
But not till you get to a final product. When you get to a final work product, then yes, I'd like to see it. But while you're brainstorming it in the woodshed, no, I don't need to be in the woodshed.
All right, do I need to entertain a motion, or how would you like this?
This direction, I think I heard a workshop, we'll schedule a weekend workshop.
Yep.
You want to make the motion?
I'm-
Rebecca wants to make the
I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Directors start the process to review, revise, and update the administration code, starting with a weekend workshop for all 5 directors to attend. Date TBD.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, so carried. Item 11, capacity fee reports.
Good evening. This is an annual requirement. Agencies are supposed to report their water capacity charges to their boards on an annual basis. You receive periodic updates about how much funding is in the capacity reports on the financial reports, how much is in the fund, I'm sorry. But this is a lot more detail for your purposes. So page 51 of the packet is the water capacity charges. Remember, we have both water and wastewater or sewer capacity charges. So we began our year with $145,000 in our capacity fund. We had some journal entry, we had some restricted funds in there that weren't supposed to be restricted, so our real beginning number was $126,022. We had $126,000 worth of meters purchased this year. We sold 22 meters, that's a 57% increase from last year alone. We sold 2 of those meters, accounted for 34% of the revenue. That's the 2-inch meters associated with the county complex. Okay. So we got $126,022 in new capacity charges this year, this last fiscal year. We earned $1,609 in interest. We used none of that money for any kind of public improvements, so this money can be used. We ended up with $260,923.18. So we almost doubled this fund in 1 year. Note that water capacity charges or any capacity charges can be used for certain projects that are growth related. So remember, we're embarking on our CIRP project, and oversizing or increased sizing of pipe. If we're replacing a 6-inch pipe with an 8-inch pipe, that incremental cost associated with that 2-inch upsizing is for growth. That's why we're putting that pipe in place. So that incremental portion, we can use our capacity charges for. Okay, we used some of our capacity charges back in the day for our H-zone project. So we figured out how much of that was for vacant land. That was the portion that we considered for growth. Okay. So then, the next page, the last page of the packet is the sewer capacity charges. We started the year out with $613,000 in the fund. We collected $122,546.19 this year. The majority of that comes from High Desert Medical Center. We have a 15-year note from them. Their capacity charges for their sewer plant were over $1 million. The board authorized a contract with them. Their 9 years remain on that note, and they have funded 70% of the money that's in this fund to date. So the majority of the money that we've collected has come from High Desert Medical Center. In addition to that, 5 meters were sold this year in the wastewater area. Again, we've got the $24,000 that came from the county complex. That's their 2-inch meters, large capacity fees associated with 2-inch meters. And then some interest, $7,700 roughly of interest, ending the year at $743,788.54. So, again, I think, we have a 400% increase in, last year we had 1 meter sold during the entire year that was in the sewer area. So this year 5. So even that's a really significant increase. I think it's not news to anybody who works in the office that development is is ramping up, is increasing. So that's the end of my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Starting down at the other end.
Well, I'm on the riveting Finance Committee now, and this did come up to the Finance Committee, and I brought up during that meeting, I'd like to have us review our sewer assessment policy. I think you're right, growth is happening in Joshua Tree. I think the whole district should be in the assessment district. Any kind of new development should start paying its share, because we could get really dinged by the county. If the State Water Resources Control Board said that we needed to put in the sewer, we're not a taxing entity. We couldn't raise taxes like Yucca Valley, 29 Palms, and the county would decide on an assessment district for us. I think just like we raised rates this year, pardon me, which was very helpful to us, I think in having an audit that showed we had a net improved position. Also, it helped us to get a decent small loan and other things. All this reporting goes to, when the auditor was here, he talked about how this goes to the county, it goes to LAFCO, it goes to this and those other 8 entities. I think we need to show that we are being very proactive. I don't want to get stuck, and I don't want to, I think that, how would we do that? What do we need to do to look
Well,
at
that's
something?
already on our list, so Kurt and I have had many discussions about that. That's already on our list. So
Okay.
I think, at that point, it's just priority, which, report are we going to evaluate first? But yes, we're already looking at that issue.
Thank you.
What she said.
Yes.
I agree, absolutely. I think that the whole district probably should be part of that.
In the most simplistic terms, when we build a wastewater collection system, it's not going to skip any parcels as it goes down the road.
Yep.
So the idea that some of those parcels don't need to be connected, interestingly, we're just at about 10 years in to our wastewater strategy. So it's a good time to look again at a unique strategy that was developed for a sometime in the future system. So it's due. It's due. We're 10 years in, it's due.
Well, I remember 10 years ago when we developed that strategy. I was involved in that. Seeing what our neighbor has gone through, what Los Osos has gone through, it was a smart move to do it then. It's by all means, let's move forward on that as well. Revisiting it to review and to make sure we're on track or to make adjustments is only customary.
So one comment, it's not in this year's budget to review that and involve Dudek, who was the engineering firm that did the first one. So if the board wants to move promptly, I can bring that back January 19th or first part of February with an estimated cost. And if you approve that, we'll don't hit me. We'll find the money.
Have you talked to Mr. Dan, who might have firsthand knowledge on some of this? Implementing the system. This is a good thing, so I appreciate that. Okay. Do I
Need a motion to
Need a motion then?
receive and file.
I'll receive a motion, if there is such, to recommend to the board to receive and file the report. Do I have a motion?
I move that the board receive and file the capacity fee report.
A second? I'll second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, so done. Item number 12, General Counsel.
Mr. Chairman, I have no open session report.
Item 13, General Manager's report.
I have no general manager's report.
Wow, this is getting good. Item 14, Director's comments and reports on meetings attended. Public outreach. Mr. Agnew.
All right. Good news. we made, I believe it's the Forbes magazine, major article. 10 places must see in 2019. Guess where?
Joshua Basin Water District? Our tours?
We are national. Just want to let you know. Also, the ramping up meeting for volunteers and docent, we have docents who are really trained, and then our lightweight volunteers that come in and help out with some of our events, will be January 11th at 1 p.m. That's a Friday afternoon here at the district office. We start looking at all the activities that start coming down the pike for spring and, up until this time next year. So that is open to the public, anyone interested. It's also in the newsletter, so if anyone has questions, they can call me. But that's all I have to say, and welcome back, Mike, and everyone have a safe and happy holiday celebration. We'll see you next year.
Kathleen, when does our Public Information Committee meet? I don't think we're meeting in that first week of January. We're
It
meeting in the
appears
second?
that we will be moving it, and I don't know who's still on that committee from the board. See? Okay. So my recommendation is that we move it to the first meeting in January that the board has on the same day, which would be the 16th. I don't have a problem with that if you don't, and then we'll just list it. It just made more sense not to have it if you're not having a board meeting at night. Okay, so you want to move it? All right. Thank you.
All right, Mojave Water Agency, the TAC meeting, Director Lund.
Yes. One of the most interesting things about the TAC is they were talking about Palisades Ranch, and anyone who knows the land trust bought that land, and they're starting to do a bunch of cleanup on it, and that's right on the Mojave River. We actually took a tour of that last year, we being, I don't remember who was on that tour, but it was really interesting to see. It's gorgeous, gorgeous land. And that is now part of, and they had to put it, in order to get funding, you have to be part of an integrated water management plan. And so they are now part of the integrated water management plan. And if you want to look at that, which is more information than I care to look at, but www.mywaterplan.com is all the information on the integrated water management plan. And that's my report, sir.
Okay. Finance Committee met on December 12th, and welcome Director Unger. Thanks to the folks that did come. The public is almost breaking the doors down, and just standing room only. It is riveting, and I'll let Director Unger add any comments if she may.
It's a good committee. It's where you think, we're just going to pick around with the check register. A lot of important things come to that committee, and the public is allowed to take part in that. If you're a director, you have to sit quietly and make notes and bite your tongue. But I highly recommend the Finance Committee.
Thanks, staff, for all the work on that. Water Resources and Operations, Director Hund.
We primarily reviewed the draft job descriptions that were in the consent calendar tonight, and staff did a great job of putting those together, and I think that their approval will enable staff to move forward with the rest of the hiring to get our infrastructure program up and running. So, thanks.
Morongo Basin Pipeline Commission, Director Luckman, December 12th.
Yes. Actually, this was an interesting meeting because it turns out we'll be paying off the pipeline in a couple of years. And when we pay it off, Mojave will take ownership of it. And there was a director from, I think, Bighorn that objected to that. He wanted it to go on our books. The downside to having it on our books is maintaining that pipeline and making the repairs that need to be made. It's very in the millions of dollars, folks. And so the fact that it'll still be, the water's coming down here, but Mojave Water Agency has undertaken that to keep it in good repair. All I could do was say, thank you.
Yes.
But, and that was the major thing of the Pipeline Commission.
Wow.
Oh, actually, there was an update on the state water project, and I think they're saying 10%. And I'm thinking, God only knows what's gonna happen. There's all kinds of things that they're talking about, trying to get so that they have more consistent water coming down here, but it's dicey right now. And that's it, sir.
Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors, Director Unger, 13th of December.
As I've said before, they pay me well to go to these meetings and to show that I'm paying attention and absorbing it. It was a good meeting, and they also brought up that 10% allocation too, at that meeting. Good news on the pipeline. The invocation was given by Bighorn Desert View General Manager Marina West, who she noted this was a goodbye to some and a welcome to others. And they did swear in our rep, Jim Ventura. He ran unopposed for re-election in 2018. He was sworn in with the new board member, Jeanette Hayhurst. She's been a longtime Mojave staffer, great person. And she took the seat that was held by longtime director Beverly Lowry. Director Mike Page, who wasn't present, he won his re-election. He was sworn in earlier. There was a nice recognition ceremony for Beverly. She was retiring at 89 years old. After 47 years of public service, 33 years of which was on the Mojave board. Former Congressman Jerry Lewis was there. He presented a proclamation on behalf of current Congressman Paul Cook. And he thanked Beverly Lowry personally for encouraging him to run for public office many years ago. Another director also thanked her for helping him get on the board. President Kimberly Cox said, "We love you and have so much respect for all you've done and all your teaching and guiding of us." Director Smith, he echoed, Lowry recently got an award that called her a jewel of the desert, and he echoed that. Jim Ventura, who's our representative, he had some humorous things to say. He said, I go back to 1996 when I was working for then First District Supervisor Kathy Davis. He said, Bev understood the ways of government while I was trying to do good in all the wrong ways. And he remembered a time that once he had, I guess, been on Mojave's board, he came to her for her support for $600,000 for the Morongo Basin. Quote, "She said she could help this time, but if I came back for more, she'd punch me in the nose." New director Hayhurst, she acknowledged Lowry's guidance. She said, "I was schooled on how to be a good director." And when it was Bev's turn to speak, she was brief. She said, "My goal was always to be fair to every division. I'm happy and I'm humbled." And yes, there was cake. They did too, realigned their board. Carl Coleman is president, Smitty is vice president, Jim was reelected as treasurer, and Jeanette is the secretary. There were 6 directors there, and they all voted. They voted to finally upgrade their boardroom audio-visual equipment. And it's a good thing because it went out while we were during the meeting. They had constant troubles with it. So, and Jim Ventura said he hoped that they could add the capacity to actually stream it live, so he said people wouldn't have to take a long ride to Apple Valley. They also voted to extend this contract with the DWR and the State Water Project through 2085 to avoid a compression of debt service costs that would result if the contracts ended in 2035, which they're supposed to. They said that DWR would not be issuing any new debt beyond 2035, and to get everyone paid up in that time, it would force, larger payments to get everything paid off. CFO Kathy Kortner, she said that the agreement also added water management opportunities for Mojave to raise revenues to pay their share of water fixed costs. And who's ever going to be at the meeting, back in the spring, they're going to bring it back to the board for full amendments and all that kind of stuff. They awarded $350,000 between 2 different outfits for on-call emergency services. Something we had to do after we had the big storm. We didn't have to call anybody. We did all the work ourselves. Thank you, Mark. The board also entered into an agreement with Coachella Water District as a sub-grantee for these Prop 1 disadvantaged community funds. The allocations will be $47,000 for County Service Area 7040-4, W-4, $50,000 for Bighorn and 29 Water District, and $130,000 each to High Desert and Joshua Basin Water District. Yay! They also voted to deny a claim against them by the city of Victorville for damage to its sewer laterals under Mesa Street, allegedly caused by Mojave's 36-inch water main project completed in 2010. The board went into closed session at 11:20 for 4 items with legal counsel. The end.
Any comments, questions on director's comments, reports? If not, we'll move on to item 15, future director meetings, board of directors on January 2nd.
I move we cancel that.
Mickey.
A second?
Second. Is there any discussion on any of this? The motion is that we cancel the January 2nd meeting, and I assume then we'll go January 16 or whatever's down the road. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Move. Citizens Advisory Committee, January 8th, 6
It's
p.m.
actually, Mr. President, it's
Sir.
actually January 15th.
15th.
Okay. I probably would show up on the 16th, so this is good. All right, second Citizens Advisory Committee, January 8th at 6 p.m.
15th.
I'm sorry?
The CAC meeting, the CAC at the last meeting decided to move it to January 15th rather than the 8th.
Does that mean the January 9th meeting too, for the Finance Committee is some other day?
No. Well, people are lining up for that one.
That's true, so,
Well, that would, let's see here. That would conflict with my Public Information Committee meeting if we do
No,
the,
PIC would be on January 16th.
that one's the 16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay, so January 9th, the Finance Committee, and Water Resources and Operations on January 9th at 10:30. Anything for the good of the order?
There's actually one more meeting on the following day. I'll be attending the Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors meeting.
On what day? 10th?
On the 10th, and I have to say that I'm going to be aspiring to come even close to Becky's level on those meetings.
Well, you're a note taker too, so.
Job well done.
Yes. Okay, with all that, we move to item 16, a closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do need a closed session tonight, as reflected in item 16.
All right, and I guess at this time I will close the meeting, adjourn the meeting, and for those that would like to stay, you're welcome to stay.